that during lunch and bring it up to us. We will still honor that at that. At this point, we're going to go ahead and kind of get rolling on the overall thing for today. So, first of all, welcome. Congratulations on reaching your senior year. Yeah, give those big hands, because that's a big deal. Before we get started, need everybody to smile. There we go. Got a nice piano picture there. All right. What I like to do is compare that to similar pictures that I took of you guys as ninth graders, and it's a big difference. Believe me, we had the ninth graders in the other day. Very different, right? So a few things about today before we get rolling. A couple of just house cleaning things. First of all, phones. We actually are going to be using some cell phones a little bit, but for the most part, what we're going to do is ask everybody to turn ringers off, and they should be out of sight while we're doing stuff today. Kind of get into what we'll be doing here in a minute, but you guys know where the restrooms are. You've been here before. This is your last big come together Best Western Field Trip. Very last one. Dave Church says amen. Okay. Really? We don't get a big, your last big field trip for Blue. You guys will all be together. Last year, we had to split the senior expos. Last year, we had to split them for two places, so we didn't get it. We're not able to get everybody together. This year, we will have a single senior expo, so you will all be together for your very last Blue Ridge Pizza lunch. That'll be in May. But this will be the last big field trip that we'll be doing like this. We'll see you guys other places, UVA for research and do some other things like that. But this is going to be the last one we get everybody in here together. So we've got a lot going on today. And primarily, just to kind of give you a heads up about what today is. We are not going to go over the nuts and bolts of the project. Because you guys have done this, you've looked at the website, you've done scavenger hunts, you've got your modules, and you've got incredible advisors back here that will help you navigate this process. So that's not what we're really worried about today. What we really want to talk about today are the things that really make these projects as good as possible. Some of you guys started emailing me like in 10th grade actually. So some of you guys have obviously been thinking ahead. Some of you guys are probably still sitting here going, I wonder what I should do. So there's I know that there's a wide spectrum in terms of how you're kind of thinking about this project and what you're anticipating. But there's some things that we think that everybody should hear about what our expectations are and what should it look like. When we talk about things like quality or significance, and we're talking about communication, what are we talking about? How are we going to be assessing? And at the end of this, one of the things that happens in your presentation at the expo, you're going to have people coming in. Your advisors have seen the whole process. They've seen you. They're seeing you, and we have seen the process where you guys are putting in your proposals and thinking about what you're doing. You're going to have a group of people coming in who don't know you and don't know your project, and they're going to be assessing it based on the things that we talked about today: quality and significance. What do they see, and how clearly does that come through? So that's part of why we want to get everybody together, is to really work through some of those concepts, and then have you guys do some assessment, and also share some of the information about what you are doing as seniors in your project. Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys have done either some or all of your hours this summer? I figured that was about right, about a third, quarter to a third. So you guys are feeling good. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. I would give a little hand here. A couple of things. Maybe before we get rolling on the actual content, we are going to talk a little bit about handbook stuff, because once again, we are a school that has its own rules and own policies, things like that. So as you go into this year, you'll need to remember that. All right. I am not going to spend a great deal of time because you guys have proven through your 3 years and a few days in Blue Ridge Governor School that you have a great ability to read and process information. There's not a lot new about this. There are a couple of things that I do want to kind of point out in a little bit more detail. So, things that you guys need to be aware of more than anything else. Starting on page 8. As part of your process for this senior project, you're going to be writing a letter of intent. Your letter of intent is not only going to include what your plans are, but they also have to include a commitment to the ethical standards of Blue Ridge Virtual Governor School. Many of you, I hope many of you, will be getting in touch with me if you're interested in having letters of reference or having me do references. I'm always happy to do that for students who are looking at colleges or going to Common App or what have you. I get a lot of those every year. The best thing I can say about a student is they have completely lived up to our honor code. They have been honorable throughout the time that they are in this program. So in this project, it's a little different from anything else you've done because it's highly individualized. Your paper is not going to look like anybody else's paper, right? And the other aspects of the project are not really going to look like anybody else's. So I'm not as worried about certain aspects of that, but then other pieces of it, I mean, you will have pressures, you will have deadlines, you will have things going on both in this class and outside of this class. And we do expect that you're going to put those through the right filter and go, yeah, I'm not going to make a bad decision like this. I'm not going to copy somebody else's work and call it my own. So we trust that that's going to happen. We trust that you guys, when you commit to that, in your letters, that's how that's going to roll. So, honor code, a couple other things I just want to hit real quick. And one has to do with on page 10. Actually, two things. The grade appeal process, just clarifying that there is a grade appeal process to be followed if you have an issue with grades in a Blue Ridge class. But also academic standing. And this is something that you guys need to be like sort of hyper aware of. So normally the process, if somebody's going to is having academic issues or grade issues, the process for how that plays out usually takes place over the course of a couple of more semesters of school. You guys are seniors now, and in this senior project, we don't have a couple of semesters to work with you if something happens. So there is, in Blue Ridge policy, there is an accelerated process for seniors. If you get to, let's say, the end of September, and you haven't done any of your journal, the accident, whatever, the stuff you're expected to do, your advisor is going to send up a flare, and we're going to put you on a plan at that point. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but I just want you to know, I don't want you to get to this point with somebody and have them say, well, I didn't know that was the case. The case is that you can be put into a probationary process very quickly as a senior with Blue Ridge. It almost never happens. Almost. But it does happen. So we want you to be aware. I mean, the main thing is just keep up with your work and communicate, right? Those are the biggest things that you can do. So I'm not going to go through the rest of this. I mean, again, I think everybody's got a pretty good handle on it, but you do need to take it home to read like a good trashy novel. You need to go to the last page, which is the signature page. And the signature page says you will sign this, your parent will sign this. You will get these back to your advisors by advisors. We're going to have signature pages coming back to you by, today's Thursday, like next Monday work? Tuesday, yeah. No, we want you to come back to school on Monday just to turn these back in. Next Tuesday. Here's the deal. And this is a little bit different, just to be aware of. There is also a process if you choose not to do the paper signing. You can actually do it electronically. There's a URL at the top of the page. So you and your parent would need to get on the computer and then put this information in, and that would be the electronic signature. And then if we don't have these by Tuesday, I drive to your house, knock on your door, interrupt your dinner, all that kind of stuff. So don't make me do that, please. All right, please go ahead and put these up in a safe place. Don't want to find them all over the floor when we finish. But before you do, make sure you take note of the number on the back. Okay, so senior project. This is something that was developed as Blue Ridge kind of started coming together in the early 2000s, in the early 00s. Really was. I was part of the original curriculum group when I was working at Orange County High School, and this whole program was being put together. And I left actually right after Miss Dalton's first year in Orange. I left and then didn't see how this thing was developed. And when I came back to Blue Ridge several years later, this project had been developed. It's changed a lot since then, but the fundamental hallmarks of the project have remained pretty sound, and we have seen a lot of people get a lot of stuff out of here. So one of the things what we want to do, if I can get this thing to work, there we go, is we're going to talk a little bit about, first of all, why this project, and then we're going to talk about some of the potential outcomes, and then we're going to get into the specifics with your advisors. So a couple of different points today. We're going to look for some feedback from you guys, and this is going to be the first point. So what you'll need to do is be in a group of maybe 2 or 3 people. One person will need to have a phone out, and that person is going to need to text my name, remember it's MARCCARRAWAY 554 to this number 37607. So go ahead and get into a group and do that if you would. Go ahead and have one person in your group. Groups of 2, 3, even 4. And the question, once you kind of have this going, as a group, is to talk for a couple of minutes and then start putting your answers in. What are 3 things that you as a group, you 2, 3, or however many people you're talking with, what are 3 things that you can agree that you want to get out of this project? What do you hope to gain from doing this project? So talk about that. As soon as you have kind of your top 3 list as a group, then have whoever's got the phone go ahead and put this answer in. Where's stuff showing up here? All everywhere not working today. There we go. There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right. Go ahead and stop for a second. So this is basically a summary of what you guys have put in here. So it seems like experience is certainly one of the big ones. Knowledge, college shows up quite a bit. Career, professional confidence, respect, potential. Happiness. I like that too. Happiness is good. Management, insight, so you guys, I think, the good thing about this, I think you guys have a pretty good sense of what the potential is for this. Here's part of the deal with getting together on this, because, again, for many of you, and I've been communicating with a lot of you, you're on this, you've got your ideas about where you're going to go with this. For some of you, maybe not so much. For some of you guys, this is one of the most incredible experiences you will have. It should be for everybody, because this is the first time really you're getting to completely drive the bus as far as what you're going to be doing and what you're going to be learning in a school setting. Completely drive the bus anytime, right? So that's something that's why people look forward to college, because that's kind of what it looks like from here on out. And you guys will be sitting there in a year kind of going, wow, okay, where am I going to take things from here? Because I've got the ability to do that. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're hoping you're going to get out of this. First of all, we want you to learn in the real world. We want you to see how people actually do this stuff in their jobs, in their workplaces, in their schools, wherever you're going. We want you to have a challenge. Challenges are not always easy. And some of the challenge in this is just even lining up the internship. That is great practice. For many people, that's something they haven't had to do, like cold calling and going out, and that's a great thing, great skill set to have. Contact with people of influence. Just talk to Jenna here. Jenna, how many contacts did you come out with through your like 10 or 15 contacts? You'll see I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that people are doing now. You can come out, having a network can give you a lot of opportunities later on in life or further on in this project. Academic independence. You guys get to, not only do you get to figure out what your topic is and who you're going to do it with, but you also get to figure out how you're going to research this. What are you going to do with this? Again, that's much more of a college type setting. You go into, depending on what your major is, chances are you're going to be able to design and execute your own research project. Communication with experts, you've done some of that in the past. Research and analysis, you've done some of that. But you're going to be doing this on a different level here. You're going to be doing it again, kind of thinking about how you're going to prepare for future things. Community service is huge. And it's huge on a couple of things. First of all, it's tremendous experience. Designing and executing community service is an awesome experience. But it's also, there's a lot of research around service in general. It's a lifelong practice for many people. A lot of people do service. I just actually met somebody yesterday who he and his wife were retired. He made big bucks in the tech industry and retired around 50. And he and his wife go and they live in a different community for 2 years at a time. So they've lived all over the country and actually all over the world. And what they do is they go into that community and they find things to do for service. And that's what they do. I mean, this guy's got bazillions of dollars. He could be sitting on his yacht in Monaco somewhere, sipping on a Mai Tai. No, he's going out and going to places like Charlottesville or San Francisco or Midwest and living there and doing service. He loves it. Presentation skills. You guys have practiced these. Fortunately, up to this point, you've done presentations in the context of having other people around you who can catch you if you pass out. In this one, you're going to be doing your own thing. And it's a 10-minute presentation. It is nothing to be afraid of. You guys, you guys have seen lots of seniors do this. One of the things that's a little different about this presentation is you go into it knowing exactly what you did. You're really just telling the story. It's a TED Talk, it's a story. It's you talking about why did I choose this topic? What did I learn? What kind of problems did I have? What did I gain from this? What was cool about it? What was kind of not so cool about it? What's going to happen with my learning from here on out? So it's an easy, it's easy to kind of put it together. It's not something where you have to sit there and memorize a script or have to memorize how many volts Arabidopsis have, right? This is something you remember that? Sorry, say Arabidopsis. So that's something that you guys will have an opportunity. The other piece is the expo, the senior expo, where everybody comes in and looks kind of science fairish, where we've got everybody's got their boards and stuff. That's actually a really cool event. It looks like a lot of job fairs. It looks like a lot of things that you'll do at the college level, where it's much more kind of giving the elevator speech, just a summary of what you're doing. And the last thing, we really would like you to enjoy this as much as possible. It is something you have to do as part of your literature experience. It it's something that so many people have left us. We've got students that have gone in and gotten all their hours, say, first semester, because they were in like 4x4 school with the first semester class. And then going back and gotten 100 more hours second semester just because they had such a good time with their internship. That stuff happens. So I want to share just a couple of stories real quick. And I'm not going to read these things word for word, but these are communications, actually two of which I've received in the last 2 days from people who have completed this project that you are embarking on. This is somebody from Savannah County who got into astronomy and worked with UVA astronomy with their observatory. And her task as an intern was to observe the New Horizons probe so they could take measurements to make sure it was on the track that that it was supposed to be on as it went around the different planets in the solar system. This is somebody who graduated in 2007. And she contacted me in 2015 to say, hey, my internship, the stuff that I did, is still in use by this process, by NASA with this New Horizons probe. That's pretty cool. You talk about a legacy. That's somebody who's part of their work is like flying out in the solar system. That's pretty cool. This stuff, just the fact that she even thought to contact me to let me know that was still going on, I was really just impressed by that. This one I got this last night. Lindsay Norbert, Orange people will know. Lindsay did also some space stuff. She worked with the VAST program down in Hampton Roads, and she wrote me and let me know that she had gotten a scholarship for that, and actually has a possibility, as you can see here, for an undergraduate internship program. So that's gold. I mean, one of the things talking about those network connections. If you can get into something where you've made those kind of connections, or where people can look at what you've done and said, wow, this gives you a certain level of legitimacy in my eyes, it's going to open some possibilities. Another possibility, Isaac McSherry from Green last year. Isaac's in the middle here. Isaac did his stuff with MITRE in Charlottesville. They're an outfit that does testing of federal government contracts, and he was working on drone stuff. He worked on a lot of different stuff in there. But at the end of the senior year last year, MITRE, this company, flew him out to California to help the Marines test this prototype drone. This is an 18-year-old kid who's a consultant for the federal government. That's pretty cool. So he's off college, Stanford now. He will have opportunities basically to do anything he wants. He's got that on his resume. But, oh yeah, by the way, while everybody else was, I don't know, going to Beach Week or whatever, I was out helping the Marines test this prototype drone as part of my senior internship. And then the last one, Tamara Sherman, who also is Orange, did her internship with the Library of Congress film preservation place up in Culpeper. And it was kind of a lark. She kind of said, I'm interested in film, not something I want to do for a living, but I just wanted to learn about it. She got in this internship. She loved it. She absolutely killed the presentation last year. But she wrote me this about 2 days ago. Let me know. She just started at UVA, and she's able to get a job working in the rare books preservation part of the library at UVA. And a big part of it had to do with her experience. So the question for you guys is to think about not just about what am I interested in, but how can this pay off for me? You guys are all heading somewhere that this experience can really help to inform what you're going to be doing. And it can really help you make connections with people. We've had a lot of people who have gotten into internships who have basically been able to set their academic or career path from here based on their internships. So ultimately, this is up to you. And that's a big part of what we're, today as you're going into this, thinking about things like quality and learning strategy. What does that really mean? Because if you are one of those people who says, I'm going to just check those boxes off and try to get it done so that people stay out of my business and then I can go back and play video games or whatever. You're not taking advantage of what this thing's all about. And as I say, many of you I know, because I've had the conversations, many of you are already starting with this process, where you're thinking about this, you're thinking it through. This is the opportunity. You've got some fantastic advisors who have walked a lot of people through this process. How do you make the most of it? That's one of the biggest questions that you need to have. I know you're busy. I know you got sports. I know you got band. I know you got drama. I know you got lots of other heavy classes. I know you have commitments outside of school. I mean, that's a reality that we recognize is there. That every single one of these people that I just put up on the screen have the same thing. Every single one. So how do you make that work? And that's a big part. And that's a big part of what your advisors are there to do as well. So I kind of leave this one as the gold standard here. This Brittany Garten, who graduated from Orange, a number of years ago. It's probably been about maybe about 10 years ago since we had Brittany. Brittany's project, she's dressed in, rather than business dress for her presentation, she's dressed in traditional Romanian dress because her project was to go over and start a school in an orphanage. We call that the gold standard for community service. Like, the school is still functioning. She's still involved with that. So basically the lesson to that is, I mean, think about all of the kids and all the teachers who've been influenced by that project. What you do matters, how you do it matters. What, if you approach it as, this is just something I got to do, if you approach college that way, you know, I don't mean to scare anybody by saying it is a difficult and competitive world out there. What I see consistently, having worked with thousands of people in this program and in other high schools, you know, some of the high schools that you guys come from, is that people who show up, who are really thinking through and say, how do I make the most of this opportunity? Things happen. Good things happen for them, and that will happen for you guys as well. So this is the other real quick one. Back with your groups. What are you going to need in terms of skills, in terms of personal attributes, how you approach this? What are you going to need to be able to make this project work? So think about that and oh, sure.
Thirst for learning.
All right. So apparently we've got kind of one overwhelming kind of thing here. Time management, absolutely. One of the things about this is you guys have deadlines throughout, as you do throughout all of your projects. Paying attention to this deadline, setting your own internal deadline is going to be critical. Confidence, I like that one. Determination. This takes a little grit. You will get. First of all, and I was talking with a couple of different folks about this. Everybody comes in with a plan. I will tell you, it is very rare for somebody's plan to go through 100%. It is very rare. But having a plan makes it much more possible for you to make the adjustments that you need when somebody tells you no, or something comes apart, or your mentor gets transferred to another company, or moves, or in some cases, this has really happened, dies. Yeah, it's really tough to finish when it dies. You know, so yeah. Then you got to go to plan B. Nobody plans for that, right? So we've had people retire right in the middle and say, yeah, thanks, I had you as an intern, but you know, you've got 4 hours in, but I'm going to retire now. You know, that has happened. So you've got to have that determination. Persistence. Hey guys. Enthusiasm. Muscle. I'm not so sure about that one.
Jesus.
Yeah, I got that. Clout. How do you get clout? You get clout by doing some of this other stuff. By making the connections. Once you have connections, that's clout. Once you have a network. And clout is like, you know, influence over people, right? So, guys, here's a little piece on that. Every contact that you make, when you make an actual real contact, and one of the things that Ms. Jason talks to people about is communication. When you're making actual real contacts, you may not, you know, it may be that particular contact doesn't come through for you, but quite often they will come up with a network or come up with a reference for somebody who will. So this is a good list. This is good stuff. You will, I mean, part of it is going in thinking, I'm going to do well in this. I'm going to have to manage around. I got a lot of stuff going on in my life. You got college applications. You got all the stuff at school. We know that. But you can do this because we've seen lots and lots of people do it really successful. And this is a good list here. So we're going to start getting into some of the real specifics about what it is that you need to make this thing work. But I want to just play very quickly a quick video. And I'm going to just give you forewarning. It has one word that is totally inappropriate for school. It's just the way it goes. You guys are old enough to handle that. But I think this is a good summary. You guys familiar with TED Talks, right? Okay. If you're not familiar with TED Talks, go look at TED Talks because that is the best training you guys can have for the presentation that you will do, you know, for your final presentation for this. But this is a guy who he's been a big participant in TED. He's done a lot of research around success. What does it take to be successful? So just for a couple minutes, we're going to just see what he has to say. And again, just ignore the one word that doesn't really fit.
This is really a 2-hour presentation I give to high school students, cut down to 3 minutes. And it all started one day on a plane on my way to TED, 7 years ago. And in the seat next to me was a high school student, a teenager, and she came from a really poor family. And she wanted to make something of her life. And she asked me a simple little question. She said, what leads to success? And I felt really badly because I couldn't give her a good answer. So I get off the plane and I come to TED. And I think, geez, I'm in the middle of a room of successful people. So why don't I ask them what helped them succeed and pass it on to kids? So here we are, 7 years, 500 interviews later, and I'm going to tell you what really leads to success and makes TEDsters tick. And the first thing is passion. Freeman Thomas says, I'm driven by my passion. TEDsters do it for love, they don't do it for money. Carol Coletta says, I would pay someone to do what I do. And the interesting thing is, if you do it for love, the money comes anyway. Work. Rupert Murdoch said to me, it's all hard work. Nothing comes easily, but I have a lot of fun. Did he say fun, Rupert? Yes. TEDsters do have fun working, and they work hard. I figured they're not workaholics, they're workaholics. Good. Alice Garden says, to be successful, put your nose down in something and get damn good at it. There's no magic, it's practice, practice, practice. And it's focus. Norma Jewison said to me, I think it all has to do with focusing yourself on one thing. And push. David Gallo says, push yourself. Physically, mentally, you've got to push, push, push. You got to push through shyness and self-doubt. Goldie Hawn says, I always had self-doubts. I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough, I didn't think I'd make it. Now, it's not always easy to push yourself, and that's why they invented mothers. Frank Gehry said to me, my mother pushed me. Serve. Sherwin Newland says it was a privilege to serve as a doctor. Now, a lot of kids tell me they want to be millionaires, and the first thing I say to them is, okay, well, you can't serve yourself. You got to serve others something of value, because that's the way people really get rich. Ideas. TEDster Bill Gates says, I had an idea. founding the first microcomputer software company. I'd say it was a pretty good idea. And there's no magic to creativity and coming up with ideas. It's just doing some very simple things. And I give lots of evidence. Persist. Joe Kraus says persistence is the #1 reason for our success. You got to persist through failure. You got to persist through crap, which of course means criticism, rejection, assholes, and pressure. So the answer to this question is simple. Pay $4,000 and come to TED. Or failing that, do the 8 things, and trust me, these are the big 8 things that lead to success. Thank you, TEDsters, for all your interviews.
I think with the exception of some of the language there that I think you guys covered most of the bases on that. Apologies for that piece. Come on. Yep. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the specifics. Let's do one thing real quick before we get into this. Just stand up. Just kind of shake off for a second. You guys have been sitting for a few minutes. Just stand up, shake it out. All right, here we go. Ms. Wilson, you ready to roll? So here, for the next little bit, one of the things we're going to hear from your advisors. And your advisors are going to be talking about some of the stuff, probably some of this is stuff that you've already talked about in your individual classes. But there are some pieces here where it is really good for everybody to know basically what are we, when we use certain language like, the first thing we're going to be talking about here is learning stretch. When we use a language like learning stretch, what is it that we're talking about? How are we going to be evaluating? And I say we, I mean your advisors, myself, the people who will come in and evaluate you at the end of your project. How are we going to be evaluating that? So Ms. Wilson is going to be talking to you a little bit about just this concept of learning stretch. So please welcome Ms. Wilson.
Okay, so hi, I'm Beth Wilson. I'm the senior advisor at Madison. What makes your project a learning stretch? Is that having your mom make the telephone calls for you, or knowing that your next door neighbor owns a company and you'll just do it there because it's easy? That's not a learning stretch, right? So we're asking you to think outside of the comfort zone. I had a student last year, and the hardest part for him, the biggest fear, and he put it off for weeks, was to make the cold call. We had lots of discussions. What's the worst thing that can happen? If you call this number and you get a person on the other end, what is the very worst thing that can happen? They say no. What's the best thing that can happen? They say yes, and it's over and done with. So that worst thing that can happen, is it really that bad? Yeah, you just move on. It doesn't hurt, right? You just move on to the next thing. So we're not letting our moms make the phone calls, right? We're not walking next door to the neighbor. We're finding some things that, why is that?
I don't even know where that came from. I don't think so. There we go. Did we get too far?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, there we go.
You're just a few. Okay, so what we're hoping to get out of this are new experiences, right? And you can get these experiences in a variety of ways, okay? And that's what we're hoping that you gain, or some new experience. Whether they build on some previous knowledge or it's completely new, what we want you to have is an experience. Okay. examples of learning stretches. Sometimes they offer personal challenges. Suppose you're doing something in, I don't know, the exercise field, okay? You guys are all young, you're fairly fit, but do you have routines that are set? Is this gonna force you to make a routine, to kind of, I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person, okay? I'm not a person with structure and routine in my day-to-day, well, I have to because I teach, but I don't exercise on a regular basis. I don't make plans more than a week in advance. I'm that person that has to accomplish one task before I can plan for the next one. So it would be a personal challenge for me to have to set up and organize a daily routine, whether it was a physical routine or whatever. We want your project to have enough complexity to legitimize it. Right? We want to bridge the gap between previous knowledge. Suppose you're building on something that you're really interested in. We want to bridge the gap between previous knowledge and new knowledge. Okay? We want to go beyond the basics. Suppose your art is your overall theme. Okay? And you're an artist and you're in your 4th or 5th year of art. You're doing an independent study in art. But suppose you've never developed an art show or put together an art show, right? You've never had to display your own work and set it up and promote it. We are building on something, right, that you have previous knowledge of, but we're going sort of outside the box. You may have to meet deadlines that you've never, if you're in an independent study, the deadlines are flexible, just like the deadlines for this project. But now you have a set deadline because your art show is coming up in 4 weeks or whatever. So we want to go beyond the basics. We want to do something that's out of our comfort zone. I had examples for all of this, but I'm just going to run through it real quick. Offer unique experiences, something that nobody else is doing. Do you know anybody else who set up a school in an orphanage in Romania? That's a unique experience, right? So when this doesn't mean unique to you, this means unique to everybody, an experience that no one else has had. We're hoping that some of these projects can offer that. All right, that they present challenges and benefits that range beyond the project. Once again, with the art example, that you take previous experience or knowledge and you take it to a higher level of formality. So now we're setting up an art show to show either art from schools or local artists or whatever, but you're doing something more formal with your previous knowledge. So how are you going to demonstrate your learning stretch? Think about it. All right.
Just a little, I'm going to one little follow-up comment on that. We've had a lot of projects over the years, like around things like, say, athletic training. Let's use it as an example. There's nothing wrong with that as a topic. But we have had a lot of people who haven't gone anywhere in the learning stretch of that. Well, I've taken an athletic training class in the high school, and so I'm helping take people up in that side. That's not the learning stretch. People who have done some outstanding stuff with that, maybe work with their local athletic trainer, but then also went to UVA and work with people who are teaching physiology, sports physiology, or work with people who are working with athletic training and related topics with college level programs. That's part of it. How do you look at this and say, this is a topic that I'm interested in? I can go as late or as high as possible. How do you get to that high end? And it's not necessarily any more work to do that. It's just a different experience. And so one that's reflective. You need to be able to articulate not only to yourself, but to people coming to evaluate you, how this is a learning stretch. When you put in your proposal, that's going to be a piece of it. So that's the learning stretch piece. We'll kind of come back to that in a bit because we're going to be evaluating some proposals. But the next thing we're going to talk about is the communication aspect, because that is a huge piece of what happens with this program. So Ms. J and Mr. D, I think that's you guys. I think it's, oh, that was right. Yeah, because it takes that slide.
Good morning. I'm Miss J, Mr. D. So I'm Louisa. Mr. D, where you from? All right, so we're going to talk to you guys about communication. One of the first things that I would like you guys to understand is that when you communicate with someone, you need to be in the now. So your generation is different from my generation because I didn't have the cell phones and all the technology. So that thing that's attached to your hand, possibly that I've seen sleeping through, please make sure that's tucked away just for a little bit, but you are actually going to be using it today. All right, so in this quote, we're taking a look at the difference between information and communication. How many of you guys are very good at dispensing information? You should all be because you're governor school students. Okay? So what's the difference between dispensing information and actually communicating with somebody else? Communication is the back and forth, and I heard that coming from a couple. No. So when you guys communicate with somebody else, most of what you communicate is actually not coming out of your mouth. What is it most coming out of? Body language. 90% of what you say actually is based on your body language. And a person will make a decision about you in 30 seconds. And they don't change that viewpoint very readily. So right now, I'm showing you guys a little bit of communication just with my body language. What am I doing to the room? It's my room. When I walk through here, I'm telling you this is my space, and you guys are paying attention to what I'm saying. Right. So, the half of the communication that you guys are good at is putting information out. The half that almost all of us have a really hard time with is the listening part. Because what do you have to do in order to listen? Yeah. We have to be quiet. But hearing is more than just actually having the words hit your eardrum and interpreting through your brain. What else are you hearing when someone talks to you? Information, it could be. What else? Tone. Tone is huge. How do you guys get that thing from mom? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. How important is that? Huge. And ladies, I'm going to throw you under the bus right now. We've been raised from this high to say the same thing in so many different ways and have so many different meanings. Guys, you are usually more straightforward with your conversation. You mean what you say. And at some point in time, you communicate with a female that's a significant other, and you're like, what? What did I do? She's like, if you don't know, you just have to figure it out yourself. You know, so tone is huge. How you have those words come across is very important. I have a tendency to be very, very blunt and very, very straightforward, which means a lot of times people think that I'm mad at them. And I'm not, but I have to be really conscious about what I say and how I say it. If you run me through a Myers-Briggs test, I come out as an INTJ. What's the J stand for? Judging. Judging. So when I look at something, what's the first thing that's going to come out of my mouth? Judge. What needs to be fixed? All the rest of it can be perfect, but it's what needs to be fixed. So you guys need to be aware of the tone you take and the attitude you take. So when I critique my students' work, I have to very consciously put in the good stuff first. I like this, and this is great, and this is fantastic. This is what I would like to see you change or you should consider changing. All right, so one of the things you guys need to do is really evaluate how you communicate with each other. All right, so this is where you guys get to play with it. Who are your targets for your communication in this project? The target of our
All right, guys.
I actually can track down your, this is no kidding. I can track down the numbers.
And I don't need to track down the numbers. You guys have to make a choice. You can either be children or you can be adults. So if you want to be serious about it and get something real out of it, then that's fantastic. Don't waste my time. Are we good? Thank you. Oh, I didn't see that.
All right, guys. So this is no longer accepting responses. So who are some of the people that you're targeting when you talk to? So I saw mentors up there. What else? Yeah.
The people who you're going to be presenting to, and
Okay, so when you do the local presentations, people who you're going to be presenting to, guys, that might include your superintendent, some of your principals, some teachers. Those are people included in that. Who was it? Oh, the senior expo. There's going to be judges there from your the locality of Orange that are going to be coming up and asking you about your presentation. Yeah. Okay, yeah, possibly you might be working with children. You know, depending on what age group you have, that, you know, that's definitely going to be a different way that you address them. Yep.
your actual advisors.
Okay, your actual advisors. Good. All right. Anything else? Executives, possibly. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so you see some of these projects, people work with, you know, really high up people in some circumstances. So it's all definitely really important to know who you're targeting when you're addressing. All right, guys, take about 10 more seconds to go ahead and answer this. All right, guys, so you see a lot of different types of academic and professional communication. Email is one that has taken the center, okay, which definitely is going to be a good starting point when you're trying to communicate with people. You most likely wouldn't be shooting them a text or something like that right off the bat, or maybe even calling with your initial contact. But email is definitely a good place to start. What might be some problems with email? Okay, their email box is full. Okay, yep. Okay, they might not read your tone the right way. Okay, yeah. Okay, they could easily just ignore it. And honestly, after working with a lot of different senior classes, that often is just like, okay, they didn't respond, and they come up to me 2 weeks later. I still haven't heard back from my mentor. What should I do? Or a potential mentor. Which is sometimes a problem with email. Okay, phone, definitely a good way to communicate. And then, all of the things that go along with body language when you actually meet with that person or that potential candidate in person.
We find that in ranking order, face-to-face communication is the most effective means. It's also a little bit the one that we kind of feared most. Mobile messaging or texting, phone calls, and then emails. Now we know for you guys that you're not going to walk right up to somebody that you don't know face-to-face and say, hey, I'm interested in an internship, because that's a problem. So most of the time you're going to do a phone call or an email. So we understand that you don't necessarily do these in order. But your main goal using a phone call or an email is to get you to that face-to-face communication. So there's some things you guys need to remember in face-to-face communication. First, you want to smile. You want to maintain eye contact. Now, some people have a really aggressive eye contact, so you're staring them down. It's not what you want to do. You got to do some blinking. You might need to look away every once in a while. And pause. So one of the things that happens when we get nervous, you guys are going to discover this in your presentations. You practice it, it's 10 minutes, you're great. You get up and do it, and it's done in 5. Because you talk fast when you are nervous. The other thing is, in your pausing, it gives the other person an opportunity to process the information that you just gave to them. It feels really uncomfortable to you because there's that dead silence. And it shouldn't stretch for more, than 5 seconds or so. But give them time to talk. You guys have all had that, or listen, you guys have all had that teacher that just straight with you and you're trying to write down everything they have and you don't get a chance to ask a question. And at the end of it, you don't know what happened. And then the fourth part is to ask questions. What is the best way to get someone to talk about anything? Get them to talk about themselves. So, guys, this is the big secret to dating. Get the girl to talk about herself. Make her feel she's the most important person in the room. It's the same way anytime you're trying to get someone to do something for you, because that's what you guys are really doing. You're asking these people to give up time to be with you, to give you something that you need. They don't need that at all. But if you can make them feel like they are the most important person in that room, and you are all there and connected to them, you've got it halfway there. And then the rest of it, you just kind of work your way through. So we're gonna have you guys get up, and I'm gonna have Mr. D's gonna talk about handshaking a little bit, and we're gonna have you guys practice some handshaking. And we're actually gonna work this in between because he has guys who point, I have girls who point.
Yeah, guys. So especially when y'all come in 9th grade, the first handshake I get is the dead fish, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It feels really uncomfortable in your hand, and you don't. What do I do with it? I mean, it's a little bit bizarre. So I mean, that's something that's honestly really important when you talk about this. I mean, when you're meeting these people, again, eye contact is really important. I mean, it's when you give someone a handshake, you got to keep a couple things in mind. Ms. Jackwitz can share with women, but I know with guys, obviously a firm handshake that definitely is better than the dead fish. We'll just leave it at that again. So.
Okay, so something for me when I get nervous or in a room like this with air conditioning, your hands get cold, and when they get cold, they feel kind of like they're damp. What you don't want to do is go up to somebody do this, and then give them a handshake. Okay. So there's some ways you guys can cheat. You can kind of sit on your hands or keep it on a warm body part, not like underneath clothing, that's odd. You can go to the restroom and run some hot water. So it hits from about here to here down, that gets your blood kind of pumping, and you keep that warm right before you go into your interview or your communication. Dry your hands really well. And sometimes if your hands are cool, that's just the way it's cool. The other thing that happens when the human body gets nervous is that we sweat. You put the palms of your hands. And it's kind of a weird thing, but if you use a dry touch spray deodorant on the palms of your hand, it will significantly reduce the sweat. All right. So the one thing that Mr. D said about the limp fish handshake, remember that you're communicating to someone else. And can anyone tell me the origination of a handshake? What were you doing, Michael?
We're trying to make sure it didn't have knife.
Yeah, originally it was checking for weapons. So we don't do that now. Now it's a signal of good intentions and really. But you are also expressing your level of respect with the other person, and you should be on equal standing. So if you don't have the same pressure and firmness in your handshake, you are going to be unconsciously signaling that either you are trying to be more dominant, you guys all have that person like, they did on those things, or that you are, not as dominant. So you're going to do we're going to have you guys practice. You're going to do the handshake. So it's like dancing, ballroom dancing, not other dancing. So you want to make your hand like a frame. And the webbing of your thumb should touch the webbing of the other person's thumb. And then you just kind of curl your fingers and you do 1, 2 pump and then let go. Otherwise, if you do this, it gets really awkward. Okay. Sometimes you're going to get someone who's just really enthusiastic, and they're going to come up and they're not only going to shake your hand, they're going to get the hug. And Mr. D has an excellent hand frame because I don't have rings on this hand, but sometimes, gentlemen, you need to be aware that when you shake a lady's hand, she may have rings on it, and if you squeeze too strongly, you're actually going to hurt her fingers. So it's not so much a squeeze as it is make your hand firm. You're really not trying to grip and rip out the other person's body part. It's just trying to shake it. All right. So when you shake hands, what else do you do?
What's that? Oh yeah, good. Definitely, always stand up. It's a little weird when someone goes to shake your hand and you're sitting down and you don't kind of meet them at their level. All right, what else, guys? Eye contact, very important. Smiling, yeah, there, good. Guys, don't crush her. If it's a female, don't crush their hand. Okay, that's not good.
The other thing with shaking hands is usually you guys are introducing yourself to someone. They don't know you, and you don't necessarily know them. And when you get nervous, you have a tendency to forget names. So you do want to introduce yourself so they don't get that glassy-eyed look. So you would say, "Hi, I'm Sam Jackson. I'm a senior advisor at high school students. So I not only say my name, what else do I put out there? A link. So he's not going to remember necessarily all of it, but he might remember Louisa County. He might remember Governor's School. He's going to remember maybe teacher or advisor. So later on, and sometimes it might only be 5 minutes later, it helps him put that in there. And then in response, coming back to it, someone comes up and says, "Hi, I'm Shane Jackson. Nice to meet you, Ben. Where are you from, Ben?" Ben. All right, so if he doesn't remember to put that out to me, you guys can also ask. And then that way you have that link later on. So I can say, "It's Ben from Mass." Because I don't necessarily remember the last. Okay, so what we would like for you guys to do is you got shoulder partners. So turn to a shoulder partner, and then we're gonna. Do we want them up to me? And do we want them to stay? No. Well, you should be standing. All right. You just handshake. I don't have a body. All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right. So the gentleman from Madison, unintentionally or intentionally, got snagged. I want you guys to show the handshake. All right. Thank you. All right, is that appropriate for the first time you meet someone? It is not. That is an intimate handshake. That is something that you do with a friend, a best buddy. Okay. It is not something you're going to do to the CEO of the company that you're wanting to intern with. You'll get restraining orders. All right, mobile messaging. I know you guys are texting generation. When you do text, or if you do text someone, they say that you can, you need to send that text as if it is a letter for English class, not as if it's a K to a sister who's supposed to pick her up. So don't text unless it's urgent. That's instant contacting, which means you have to remember the person you're contacting is working, so they cannot accept those text messages. If an email or a phone call would be better, then wait until that time. Please remember you guys are on a different time frame than most adults. You're the instantaneous Google Now generation. The generation you're communicating with is not. Okay, so wait. Correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation, which means yes, commas and periods and capitalization are important. Do not text after business hours because they're done working. That means they're at family time and they don't want to mess with you. And this is the biggest one. Don't text people that don't text you. Just because you get their contact number does not mean that is an open invitation for you to send them a text. Communicate other venues unless they specifically say, you know, hey, you can text me. All right, Mr. D, you got any phone calls?
Yes, again, so with phone calls, guys, like with older people, some of them might not hear as well. You got to keep that in mind. You know, you got to make sure that you're definitely audible, that you're communicating clearly. Okay, that's very important. You know, you can certainly do it from the classroom, being in a senior internship class. Make sure you would, if you're going to do that during the day, that you go into an area where there's not a lot of, you know, noise either in the classroom or somewhere out in the hall where a lot of people are walking by. Really, again, plan what you're going to say. You know, you have this internship class where you can actually practice with a friend or practice with your advisor or whatnot. You know, it seems like it should just be easy, but you know, some people get really nervous about that. And especially if you don't know what you're going to say, that might certainly reflect and be possibly the first interaction you have with that person. So it's important that you communicate clearly. Speak clearly and slowly. Again, don't let the outside activities, like or at home, younger siblings or whatever it might be. And really, one of the things that I already talked with my class about, if you haven't gotten a mentor yet, if you say I need to do an internship for my senior project, and that's kind of the way you initially approach it, their idea of interning is probably much larger than 10 hours of job shadowing. Okay, you got to keep that in mind. They might be thinking, okay, now right off the bat, they said interning. How much of my time is this going to take up? How many hours or weeks or months are they referring to? So it's really important to communicate that clearly, that you are doing 10 hours of job shadowing, and if they choose to, you know, put you in places where you have more of a interning experience, then that's fine.
And then emailing. So remember, for email and phone call, what is the goal of the first call? What are you trying to get them to do?
Get an impression so that they remember who you are.
True. What else? What are you really trying to get?
They get a face-to-face.
You want a face-to-face. Okay? Because you guys know how that works. If someone texts you to do something, it's easy to say, I never got the text. I didn't get. How many of you guys are guilty of doing that? Yes. Okay. The email didn't come through. But when someone comes right up to you, because I know my principal, if I want something to happen, I hunt him down and I say, you know, face to face, because it's hard to tell somebody no to their face, because you have to look them in the eyes and say no. And then people don't like to disappoint other people. So already you kind of push that person over to your side, and you're more likely to get what it is that you're after. But don't scare them. Like Mr. D said, you know, I need an internship. In most professional areas, internships are paid. And that's an immediate shut off. All right, so email is really not much in the way different. So text, correct spelling, sentences, this is really important. Send it to the correct person. Some of you guys are mass emailing at this point in time because you're trying to pull in a mentor and you're copy and pasting. Yeah. Know that dear so-and-so, please make sure the dear so-and-so matches to so-and-so in your email. I've had this happen to one of my students. They sent the email back, said, obviously, you're not overly interested in my specific company because I am not this person. Yes, it's a little harsh. And you have to understand, if you are emailing to people in a certain job type, they communicate with each other. And they say, oh yeah, that kid texted or emailed me, they called me you instead. So you want to make sure that that goes to the right person. And empty attachments. Most of it now comes up a little window saying, hey, did you mean to attach something? You have the word attach in there, and it'll remind you. But just remember, don't send it empty. And you want your content to be professional. And you had something you want to tell about the subject, right?
Oh yeah, it's, again, the same thing if you were going to send an email rather than just calling. You know, you don't want to put in the subject line internship, question mark, or again, something that might cause those people to immediately just write it up. I can't take an intern right now. We don't have the funds to pay for it, and we don't have the time or whatever it is. So you just might want to make sure you're not scaring them away right in the subject line with internship. I would also mention, guys, that you know, it feels really good when you finally lock down a mentor and you don't have to worry about that anymore. So, you know, if you do email somebody and you've given it a little bit of time to a couple days, they haven't responded, pick up a phone and call them. It's going to feel much better to just get a no and speak with somebody than wait week after week for that one person you contacted when you could, you know, be starting to put your feelers out to other places and, you know, getting that mentor locked down right away.
And it's something we talk about with my kids is that in the content, Marissa, when you talk to someone, you want to make them feel like they're the only person in the room. It's hard to do that with an email. So you guys need to do a little bit of cyber stalking. About the company that you're looking at or the person that you're emailing to. And I don't mean like in their social media, but in their professional life. I'm interested, you know, your company came to my attention because you advertise for a Geico or whatever it is, and I like your program. So you kind of want to give them kudos a little bit to let them know that you're not just blanket emailing, that you've done some research in the company, and that you see them as special, and that's why you're contacting them. All right. Okay, so these are some examples of emails that have gone out. That's a problem with the first one. It's a little informal, but maybe at this point in time they're a little farther along. Oh yeah. And spell check's not going to catch that. Why? Right, it's a grammar issue. And then anything else? February. Yeah, that is a spelling issue. All right, how about the second one? There's a couple of issues with this one. Right, it's not a letter format. What else? It's one big gigantic sentence with, I think, several commas. So if you know this is a weakness of yours, ask somebody to look at your email before you send it. I know I ask people to read mine for tone. What does this sound like if I being too rough? Yes, I know that's what should be. So ask for help. This is the point where you guys understand your strengths and weaknesses, and you know other people have strengths and weaknesses. Use their strength to help you, and use your strength to help them. You got anything? All right. That's it. Thank you all.
The last thing that we're going to kind of work on before lunch is significance. This is going to be a big piece, guys. And we talked about learning stretch. Learning stretch and significance go hand in hand. And we're going to be looking at this at the end. What we're going to be looking at is, did we see a truly significant learning experience? Did we see something that you had an impact, that this had an impact on you? And, you know, this is a big piece. I mean, you can be a passive observer in life. You can be an active participant. And that's really what we're looking for in terms of significance. I just want to make one point on this. The amount of work you put in does not equal significance. Thomas Edison did, you know, I don't know, like something like, you know, 100 different iterations of the light bulb before he found one that worked. If he had never found one that worked, all of the work that he put in would have had to be significant. It's the results, what comes out. We know things like community service and legacy. Again, we know, there's a lot of people who've gone into full-on plans and made, had some great ideas, but didn't have the execution. The idea itself is not going to make that experience. So I want to just go over a couple of specifics about significance. And there, Ms. Newman's going to talk a little bit about what the research looks like. Community service, that's going to be Ms. Asher doing community service, and then Ms. Knight on the legacy. So we're going to just spend a few minutes on that, and then what we're going to do is take a look at some proposals, basically proposals that we have received over the years, and have you guys evaluate what you think. How do you think those things look in terms of projects? So, Ms. Newman, let's get you up and running here.
Hi, I'm Ms. Newman. I'm from Green County. I've been teaching with the Burbigs program for about 10 years. I would say that my strength is in research and writing. So I'm here to talk to you all about some tips for jump-starting your research. How do you pick a topic to research? And then what are some tips that I can give to you that you can take home with you today to help write a 15-page paper? Okay. First, expect that your thesis question is going to evolve. If you start this week with an overall topic, that topic over time is going to evolve. It's going to change. In fact, in my experience, most of my students change their overall evolution of their topic and exactly what they're studying 2 to 3 times. Okay, it's going to evolve over the next month as you begin your research. You're starting with a broad topic, right? You're going to narrow that topic as you get more research, more understanding of the topic in general. And then as you get out into the field with your mentors or your community service mentors, you're going to narrow that focus even more. So do expect that over time that your topic will evolve, and just stay in touch with your advisors on how much and when and how that topic is evolving. Question?
Yeah, so it's really any
right. So, Mark, do you have APA? Okay. Yeah, it's APA. So you're going to use APA, but ultimately a 5 to 6 page paper is written the same way a 10 to 15 page paper is written. It's just that the depth changes, right? And frankly, it's the same way an expository style book was written, okay? Except instead of an introduction in a book being a chapter long, your introduction might be like a page long, okay? Versus in a 5 to 6 page paper, maybe it's 2/3 of a page long. Does that make sense? But it is the same formula that we use to craft, whether you're writing a novel, or not a novel, but like a nonfiction expository research-based book, or whether you're writing like a 10 to 15 page paper as you are about to. Okay, so how do you start this? You've got probably a topic in your head, right? Most of you have a topic in your head, just a broad topic. Start by looking at current events this week. Okay, so start looking at how often is this topic in the news? What's being discussed? That might lead you to some new research that's going on the topic. It might lead you towards looking at a controversial issue on your topic. Start with current events, okay? This week, next week, gather 15 current events that are related to your topic. And by current, I mean within the last 5 years. Research newspapers, journals, radio shows, television news broadcasts. Is your topic coming up? Because if it's coming up, that's probably an indication that there's some modern research going on in your topic, and that might be a really interesting thing to pursue. Okay, so that's one way to start narrowing your focus. Second, you can just go to Google and find some controversial issues in your topic. Literally Google search controversial issues and then stick your topic in and see what spits out in Google, okay? Again, this may lead you towards some compelling research that's being conducted in the field right now. Third, as you go into your internships, ask your mentor what they are researching. Many of you are going into academic settings, right? You're going to work with a doctor. Are they conducting any research? That's a great place to start. If they're working on research, maybe you paper sort of along with them as they conduct their research. That's contributing to modern research. That is a clear academic stretch, right? So last year I had a student intern with Wild, Virginia. He worked on decommissioning and doing research on decommissioning forest roads that are in the national park system. And he actually wrote his paper for Wild, Virginia, because Wild, Virginia wanted a paper written on how to decommission forest roads. So his contribution, he actually contributed, and Wild, Virginia is going to basically publish his findings. So ask your mentors what they're researching. That might point you in a really interesting direction. Same thing from community service. So you can do the same thing. You don't necessarily have to go to a mentor and look at research, because community service organizations conduct research as well. So is there a way to find out what your community service, what projects are they working on? What solutions have they found that work really well that are fixing some of these global problems that you're about to go fix, right? So you can also look at it from the perspective of your community service. Okay, so you've got a topic and you've narrowed your focus. How do you research a 15-page paper? We're just going to talk structure here, okay? And I'm sure Mr. Carraway will share this if you find these hints helpful. First, identify interest groups in the field in which you are studying. So all of you pretty much are in government class this year. If you don't know what an interest group is, you're about to find out. There are a number of different types of interest groups other than academic, like a professor or a journal doing research. Okay, corporations do research. Nonprofit or community service-based organizations do research. The government, state, local, national governments conduct research. One key word to throw into your search once you have a search topic is white paper. Man, I wish somebody had told me what a white paper was in college or high school. We've been even nicer. But a white paper is a serious, in-depth study, like pages and pages and pages, conducted on a topic. And many of you will find pre-existing white papers on your topic, usually conducted by a corporate, a government, or a not-for-profit entity. Okay, so that can be a really useful place to jumpstart your specific research. Okay, they're called white papers. I don't know why they're called white papers. Okay, so you're ready to start your paper, so that's like research, right? You're ready to start your paper. Start with a hook, you know that, right? Then introduce your thesis statement. Give me a map of your paper. Where's your paper going to go? Spend a couple of paragraphs looking at the background on the topic. Is there any definitions that I need as a layperson to read your paper? Okay, with the average person not necessarily know these definitions, you're going to need to introduce them early on. Then go into a brief history of your topic. I would focus primarily on the most important turning points with regard to your topic. Don't let this prattle on for more than a page. Next, discuss your problem. I'm talking like 3 bulky body paragraphs here filled with data showing me that you have identified a problem, and here's some data about the problem, and draw it from multiple sources. Okay, don't just rely on one source for your data. So first you've got to prove to me that there is a problem worth solving. Then based on that knowledge, you're going to actually solve the problem. And you can look at solutions from a number of perspectives. I generally tell my students to come up with a global solution, a national solution, a state solution, and a local solution. Or you could do like a combination. Okay, but at least consider those different perspectives as you come up with best practices or solutions for whatever controversial topic you're about to do. Are there any questions on research? Or how to do like a 15-page paper? More or less the same format as 5 pages, just more depth, right?
They were still in Holly's presentation. They were sure. So I've got a doc here that has just different links to That's the dark side, right? This is-
Just
okay.
pop them up and talk about it.
Yeah. Go ahead and get these up. I'll just load these. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, hello everybody. In realizing community service is a portion of this project, it brings a lot of questions from the students. First thing you need to do is know yourself. Think about what you're going to accomplish. You're not going to be Oprah and solve the world, meet everybody's needs unless you want to be. You have to know what you're interested in. You have to realize the resources you have available. If you don't care about it, it's not going to make a difference. You have to care. You can't go, well, I'm doing engineering, let me build a house for Habitat for Humanity, check. Something you also need to realize, in knowing yourselves, your advisors know you. I know already from my crew who can do better. So your advisors may ask for more, or they'll give you that, okay, if that's what you want to do, look, and you should hear, though you can do more. Community service is your chance to do a little bit more and a little bit different. A lot of students feel that your internship and your community service have to be very tightly married to each other. No, that is what I think I enjoy the most about the community service, is it gives you a chance to take your interests, take what you did your internship with, and possibly combine it with another one of your passions. It is still a chance to take this project where you want to go. I've pulled a couple of examples from past students, and then Mr. Caraway has added some because I only really know my students. And as I go through, I want to point out to you kind of why they were unique or why they worked, and that every single one is accomplishable kind of within your world and within what you are able to do. So we're going to start with
Yeah, right.
perfect. Devin Berger did hers. Oops. Wonders of Wildlife. What she did for her community service was raise funds to bring the wildlife program to the local elementary school. In order to raise money, she had to run because she was a cross-country runner. She had a GoFundMe page, which kind of works a little bit, but not always. So she worked to bring this program to the elementary school because she was passionate about wildlife and wanted to share that. She also was a runner, so she threw that in there. It reached a lot of people. It brought something to the elementary school that may not have been brought, or I know hasn't been brought in since then or before then, because I have children in the elementary school. So it was something that she enjoyed. She raised money through something that she knew, running, and she was able to reach the elementary school. Sometimes when it comes to raising money to support your community service is where we lose a lot of you. And that's understandable because we don't know how to go about successfully asking people for money. So if that's not something you want to do, fine. There are other options. So next. Bryce Campanelli was one of my first students. And the reason he sticks out for me is he was a very confident student. He didn't seem to need much from me. He did his internship with the public defender's office. So he was in courts and in lawyers' offices. And then he chose to do his community service with a battered women's shelter. So he went from the courtroom where he saw these people being tried to going into the battered women's shelter where he was a mentor for the children. He talked with them. He played with them. So he wasn't there to decide right and wrong as he was in the courtroom. He was there simply to understand and hear their experiences. From there, he went on to speak at different programs and write letters kind of from the perspective of those people. I like his project because it's not like 1 + 2 = 3. It was a different way of kind of incorporating what he wanted to accomplish. Morgan Tolliver was a YouTuber for like 3 years before she entered my senior class. She was one of my very first seniors. So she's one of those who kind of wowed me with what she was doing. Her community service, she worked with, what was it? Help Portrait Charlottesville. They take portraits for those people who can't afford a portrait. Sometimes they'll have sessions specifically for families. Morgan helped with cancer victims. Her YouTube show is kind of related around fashion and makeup. So she was the makeup artist for these cancer survivors and cancer patients who needed to feel pretty, needed to see themselves again the way they've always presented themselves to the world. It took her skills and her talent, and she was able to give that back to the community. So it was something that she was capable of. It didn't involve any money, any fundraising, but helped her touch others. Travis is an example of a student who was very quiet. He loved computer science like nobody's business. Like for real, he and computers were very close together. He wasn't necessarily like outgoing as far as communicating with others. He was a runner. He had friends, so he was a good guy. But as far as like going up to people and fulfilling needs, that wasn't his strength. He realized there was a need within his church. He created a computerized database for all of the tombstones in the church so that people could come in from outside or within the church and find where their loved ones were by taking pictures of each tombstone and entering them into the database. So you don't have to go out and conquer the world. If you just sit real still sometimes and look around you, you can potentially see this need, this thing that you think needs to be done, or something that you see within your church or school group that, well, if I just take this time, if I provide this service, I am genuinely making a difference in helping those people who are important to me. Rebecca Alpern is not one of mine, but I loved what she accomplished. I am a mother, so I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, little 4-year-old. He doesn't count yet because he's not in school. But what Rebecca did was she established a buddy system where the drivers, the students who drove at Louisa County High School, would come to the elementary school first in the morning. And they would be buddied with a student there. Not for tutoring, not for educational purposes, a student who just needed to be seen, needed somebody to take a couple minutes to spend just with them. It made a difference for every single little person who goes through life and goes through the day and just goes from place to place to all of a sudden have this person there just for them, just for a little bit. So did it necessarily like take a lot of outside resources? It took organization. It took communication between the high school and the elementary school, but it made a difference. These little people had somebody who cared about them, and they had an example of what they could be one day. So it was accomplished within her world, within her realm, and within her resources. She used the people around her who wanted the same things she did. These two, Tyson Smith, and then our next one, Noah, they worked together on Slam and Jam. So this is an example of a combined community service. Yes, that is an option. If you and a fellow classmate have something similar in mind, you can absolutely pull your resources and work together. They were raising money for the Louisa Arts Center, and so they did a benefit after school, $5 a person to get in, where there was like a 3-person basketball tournament going on over here and a concert going on over there. An original goal of making $500, and they made over $800 because it was something that once they pulled their resources and they worked together. And that's okay. If you're dreaming big, you can dream big with a fellow classmates to accomplish your goals.
Yes, I'm going to piggyback on that. It also doesn't have to be the same topic. So let's say you're thinking about doing something. Let's say your thing is medical, and you want to do fundraising for a cause that relates to some of the things you learned in your medical internship and your research. And you want, so you want to do some fundraising, and you've got somebody in your class that's working on marketing, or somebody that's working on music. In this case, I mean, we've had music production, marketing, and business, and specific topics all combined together for very specific, for an event that used all of their talents and had some real successes with that. So, always nice to have partners. If you have an opportunity to do something like that, find out what your fellow classmates are doing and how you guys might set the coordinate.
You guys tend to group together anyway. The last example I have is a student who did Color Me Kate. I think her name was Megan. She had a classmate or a friend who passed away in May of the year of her junior year. So come her senior year, she and some friends wanted to get together and raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So they got together, they actually reached out to the Goochland YMCA, and they helped sponsor the run. It's important to realize you don't have to do this by yourself. If there's another organization or business that shares your shares your interest, they can absolutely fund you and help you to accomplish your goals. You create the goal, you create the mission, you make it happen. Not necessarily always all by yourself. So they sponsored a 5K in the spring of her senior year that raised money, and all the profits and the proceeds went to the Leukemia Society. So there's really not a no. Nothing is impossible. You have to know yourself. You have to realize your teachers know you pretty quickly, and be willing to go for whatever you set your mind to. This is pretty quick, down and dirty run through. Any questions that you just really want me to answer for you? Yes.
You want to do multiple human research projects, like kind of like combine do one and then kind of help out with others?
That will ultimately be an advisor answer, but my thoughts are, if it's all going to accomplish something and it's all making a difference, because I know the different counties have different limitations. So I know deep down we never want to tell you no. So as long as it's going to have an impact and normally kind of contribute to the legacy, I think you're thinking in the right direction. Everybody good?
The other piece that goes along with community service that Ms. Knight is going to talk with you about is that piece of legacy. And this one trips up a lot of people, kind of trying to think about community service and legacy and the relationship between those, and what actually is a legacy. So Ms. Knight's going to talk with you a little bit about that. Yeah. There we go.
So basically, the short and dirty version of it is, the purpose of this project, the legacy, is the lasting effect of your actions. What does your whole process create for when you're gone? It doesn't have to necessarily be a thing, but that's the big question. How is this going to last after you're finished with it? So I love this quotation. What you do is your history. What you set in motion is your legacy. Think about that for a second. What you do is your history. These projects, the physical actions of them, the papers that you write, that's your history. You can talk about, I remember when I was a senior in high school and I was in this BRBGS program and I did this. Well, how does it last? What does it do beyond? Let's do it on its own, or do I have to?
Do it
On the computer.
Okay, here are 2 questions that can change your career, your business, maybe even your life. The first comes from Claire Booth Luce, one of the first women to serve in the U.S. Congress. One day in the early 1960s, she went to visit President Kennedy, and she told him this: "A great man is a sentence." While Abraham Lincoln's sentence was, he preserved the Union and freed the slaves. Franklin Roosevelt's sentence was, he lifted us out of a Great Depression and helped us win a world war. Luce worried that Kennedy was trying to do too many things, and that his sentence risked becoming a muddled paragraph. If you really want to find your true motivation, ask yourself that question. What's my sentence? You don't have to be president of anything for this to help. Maybe your sentence is, she invented a device that made people's lives easier. Maybe it's, he taught 2 generations of kids how to read. Think about your sentence, then use it to navigate your life. But to make your sentence really come alive and to create motivation that lasts, you need a second question. So each night, before you go to sleep, ask yourself, was I better today than yesterday? Keep asking that question, because that's how we really improve. Day by day, step by step, over and over for a very long time. It's tough, but it's the only way. Combine these 2 questions and motivation at work, in business, and the rest of your life will take care of itself. Drive, the surprising truth about what motivates us.
Obviously, I'm not trying to sell you anything, except for an idea. So the idea, if I can now go, can I move forward on this?
typing? The space bar? Okay. I have to go back out to the.
It's been hanging up, so
Oh,
we'll get you on here.
all right.
Pull everywhere. See if they're just ask that. Right? Yeah.
So, real quickly, you saw some really interesting projects come up. You saw those websites. The thing that they all had in common was that they left a lasting impact. And so the question is, what's your legacy going to be? What are you going to do with your research? What are you going to do with your burning question that's going to leave a lasting impact? And so, and it may not have to be yours, but I'm going to ask you guys just a couple things, a couple of maybe something that you saw in a presentation or something that you've been mulling around in your head for your community service or what you'd like to do. That is awesome. The Color Me Katie still continues. That's awesome. Does it have to be something that continues to happen, which is great if it does? Does it have to be an activity that has to be recreated every year? So what else could it be?
Like an impression you make on someone.
Absolutely, an impression you make on someone or a group of people.
If you're like running a food it could be like the people that you're feeding, they actually get a meal on their meal.
Absolutely, the people that you're feeding, they've got another meal, right? And what does that do for the long term? What does it improve? Their health, their lives, right?
That like thing with ice cream, you might not like talk to this after they graduate, but
Absolutely, they're going to leave a lasting impact on those children. And will that change the way those children potentially see other people in their lives? Will it perhaps have an effect on their relationships as they grow up? Their self-confidence, their self-worth? Small things can have a huge impact. And so when you're thinking about this, when you're thinking about your community service, that's what I want you to be thinking about is, how is this going to affect people? The database for the church cemetery. It seems like a small thing, but it can mean a lot to people who visit. So don't discount what you're doing as being not important, because a little thing can be very important to somebody. Any other ideas, questions, comments? I really think, this is such a great opportunity for you guys. I mean, I don't know if you know how special what you're doing is. We have seen so many fantastic things come through the years, and you are a phenomenal group of people. And you've done a lot already. This is your 4th year in this program. Just the fact that you're still here and doing this says something. I'd like you guys just to give yourselves a round of applause. You're here. And you have an opportunity to use the resources that BRBGS has, the time in the class, and I know that you put in a lot of time outside of it too, but to really do something special with this final project. And this is the culmination of all the other things. And I know that you guys are going to do a fantastic job. That being said, I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Caraway. He's got an important announcement for you.
Domino's is here, so we are going to do lunch. We're going to pick up on a couple things afterwards, and again, have you kind of look at some proposals. One of the things we're going to be doing when we come back is going to be we're going to be moving around a little bit. So I mentioned on those handbooks you have a number on the back, the very back corner. You need to know what that number is, because that's going to get you to lunch right now. So if you're number 20, go ahead and get it to lunch. I'm going to be completely random about this. How about that? So, for lunch, we're serving, obviously not at the back of the room as you're primarily accustomed. We're going out that door, down, so out this door, down the row, and that way. So, if you are a number 11, go ahead and line up out there. You do not need to sit with the group for lunch. Are you sure, Ken? All pick another random number. Number 7. 7. I like 7. Good. What are you talking about? You. 20. What? Yeah, my first number I called was 20, just in case anybody missed that. All right. Number 16. Easy to find the square root. El número 2. Number 2. How about 18? It's a nice number. It's very nice. Keep that in mind. How about number 8? You gotta make it fun. Pizza will be there. Sorry, because I was so cool. Number 18. Number 4. Up next, number 4. Lucky number 13. How are things? All right. Good. Number 19.
Come on.
You're hungry?
My sister and I both get like so angry.
My wife has this big Italian, genetically Italian, so it's a huge Italian sleep. So she's not getting the map. We're traveling. I think she can see that. You have to learn to read those signs. All right, right in the middle, number 10. Number 17. Number 1. You are number 1. Number 12. Get some ping pong balls. It's like the lottery, you know. Just balls out. Number 5. Did you have a question for me before, or just saying hi?
Oh no, I was just saying hi.
Okay, good. Good. Number 15. Sorry. You're still being sad. I can guarantee that. Number 14. And everybody else. 3, 6. Anybody else? Line them up. Yeah, could see that was a potential issue there. If you would like seconds, walk, do not run. Okay. Yeah. How's it going, bro? Watch the score, guys. Pretty good.